Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Book Cougars, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chris.
And we have
And I'm John.
Right, I was going to say, we have a big reveal today. He's not just John to us. He's our mystery man. For those of you who have listened to the podcast, John has been on episodes 25, 49, 60, and 72, and he goes by the moniker Our Mystery Man, and now we've revealed his face to you.
Oh my gosh, that's right. People haven't seen this face too much before. That's kind of scary. It's like an episode of Dateline.
Or I was thinking about those house shows, like where they redo the whole house and then they do the big reveal. So
Right.
Here you are.
We could have done
build up.
We could have done a profile thing, just John in profile with his voice garbled, like they do on those.
That would have been very mysterious.
I didn't like the book. Well, good morning.
Well, it's great to have you. Thanks for coming.
It's nice to see people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And walls other than my own. We may be confined, but I can see your house, and it's all very nice.
Yeah, it is nice. We started doing these Friday videos. We're calling them our Couch Biblio Adventures because Chris and I were really missing just going out to our favorite bookstores and libraries and author events. And so we thought we'd bring some of our favorite people to us instead.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be among your favorite people, and I think that's such a great idea because how else do we get to see each other?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny the things you miss and you don't miss. I have found that like this whole social distancing thing really appeals to my introverted self. And the things really that I miss are the Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru and the bookstore and the library, and that's about it. But otherwise, I'm scarily good at this.
Yeah. Yes, we introverts have been preparing for this for years. I too. I mean, I've been telling people, when this is over, you're actually going to have to encourage me to come out of my house because I'm pretty darn happy here.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Real pants.
Yeah.
Like I'm wearing a nice shirt, but you can't see what I'm wearing like beneath.
Exactly. The secret to all this video conferencing.
That's right. Let me just say there have been few zippers and buttons. Elastic waistband, that is my best friend.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. So, John, we thought we'd ask you, what's been in your reading list lately that's been turning you on?
Turning me on. Well, something has to these days. But it's funny because I am your mystery man, and I have found that I am reading almost exclusively non-mystery right now. And I'm not sure if that's a reflection of the times or it's just because, I have one of those lulls between deadlines, and I read so many mysteries that it's sort of nice to mix it up. So I have been, contemporary fiction, poetry, memoir, history, women's fiction, arts books, craft books, a little bit of everything. And it's been really, really fun and liberating. And I know that some people have, been saying that they've had a hard time getting into books with everything that's going on. And I have found my experience to be the complete opposite of that. Like I need the escapism, and that sort of is my comfort. I know that at the end of the day, I can go to some other world and enjoy that for a couple hours. So that for me has actually been really, really fun. And it's like all of life's responsibilities that I still have are really intrusions, and I almost resent it. Like I have to eat dinner.
Yeah.
And bathe. And be a social person with my wife and my mother. No, but we're really lucky that we're able to, social distance together and try to stay safe because so many people can't. And I'm lucky that, I'm finally able to read a lot of these books that I've been hoarding and stockpiling for years. But one of the ones I just recently finished is called Author-in-Chief by Craig Furman. It came out a bit earlier this year, and the subtitle of that, and I'm going to look down at the book because otherwise I will forget, it's The Untold Story of Our Presidents and the Books They Wrote. And I'm going to hold it up real quickly so you can see it. And It's a really fascinating book about, the presidents in the books that they wrote either before they took office or during office or after office. So the difference between the campaign book, which is the book that you write when you're, hoping to gain an office, and then afterwards, a lot of presidents write the legacy book, where they try to chronicle their presidency and its contributions to history. And I read an excerpt online. There was an excerpt from the Obama chapter about sort of his literary legacy, and I said, "Oh, this is a really interesting concept. I think I want to try the book because, as you know, I enjoy books on writing and craft. History, I'm iffy." with. I'm ashamed to say, but it's true. It has to be something that I'm interested in. But this is really about the presidents and their literary ambitions and how they were able to pull those off or not. So I found that really, really intriguing and fascinating. I read a lot about presidents who I didn't even know wrote books, or presidents who didn't really, write their books because ghostwriters are very prevalent. But the really cool thing about the book is it's not just a history of the presidents, it's a history of publishing, distribution, technology, all the advancements in getting books into people's hands. So it's very comprehensive, but with great examples from the different presidencies. So if you're interested, in history, in presidential history, or just in books and writing, it's a really, really intriguing read.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and it's not something I would normally have the time to read. As great as it is, I feel like it's one of those books that I've been on 5 million deadlines. I would have read a couple chapters and said, I'll come back to this. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it just doesn't happen, and that's not a reflection of the book. It's just a reflection of our schedules. But yeah, it was really, really interesting.
That's cool.
Liked it a lot.
Now, did it talk about who were some of the first to write campaign books? When did that start?
It started way back at the beginning of time, and even Washington did some writing and had some help with that. So, he's not known as one of the greater writer presidents, and he was very self-conscious about his abilities, which is why I think a lot of these presidents needed help. Also, when you're doing your legacy book, it's a lot to go through. A lot of information and paper is accumulated over 4 or 8 years in office. But even what I found interesting was Abraham Lincoln. Everybody knows him as a great orator, and he realized that himself, because I believe the first book that he published was actually a collection of debates, because he knew that he could speak very eloquently, and so what better way to capture that spirit than to actually take the transcripts of those speeches, and that came out before he was president. So that was interesting. And then on the other hand, people know JFK. They think of him as a very cultured president, very literate, which he was, but with him, it was almost more about appearance. For instance, I think we all know that Profiles in Courage, which won the Pulitzer, was largely written, by a ghostwriter, as were many of his other works, and he sort of got the credit, and he really liked the idea of being an esteemed author, so he liked people seeing him as that, but he did not actually do a lot of the writing himself.
Oh, that's a bummer to hear.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Was that a spoiler? Did you not know that?
No.
Oh.
My imagination, having been to his library a couple times now, is that he was a great editor. Because when you looked at his speeches, remember at the museum, they had the speeches laid out, and like his little quick edits really ended up being the what do you call, like the snippets of his speeches that people really remembered.
Right,
so did they talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, he would, edit very carefully, and particularly speeches. It sounds like with Profiles in Courage, he actually was a lot more hands-off than he was with his speeches, but he was, very concerned with his sort of profile and his public appearance, and so he did spend a lot of time with those speeches because he wanted to make sure it captured his voice and his ideas.
Interesting. See, now I don't want to read the book knowing that. Not
Just skip that chapter.
Well, no,
I don't know.
No,
it
that
might be
book.
Disavowed in a lot of ways.
The book.
No, you mean the JFK?
Yeah, the JFK.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of like, I have a thing about ghostwritten books or books that were written with multiple writers. I still have this, I guess it's a romantic era idea of the book being about the mind of one person.
Sure.
So.
Oh yeah, then you really are not going to want to read this book.
It's gonna blow all my illusions about presidential books, huh?
Oh,
Right.
it absolutely is. I mean, there are some exceptions to it. Some are, very, very hands-on. President Clinton, wrote his longhand, and then had it typed up for him. Obama, was very hands-on with the writing. So there are some of the examples of that, but a lot of the books, especially the legacy books that come out after Office, those tend to be very, very collaborative efforts, and a lot of times don't live up to the hype, both in terms of the quality of the story, and also the sales that might be expected of them.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I have a question about ghostwriting. Why do ghostwriters, I mean, the whole thing about having a ghostwriter, I understand, is because you want your name on the book and you want people to think you wrote it. But why is that allowed? I mean, why don't they get any credit? I don't understand that.
Yeah, good question. And you're asking me. I think honestly, it's a lot of times a matter of compensation. And if you don't have a name that's necessarily going to sell, this is a way to augment your income. I think it's a lot of times a way to augment somebody's income. Or if you have a particular interest in that person or their history, there's some esteem that comes along with working on that project, even if you can't necessarily talk about it at the time, because the truth does eventually have a way of coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Very
That's
cool.
true.
Sounds
Huh.
like a fascinating read. It's definitely going on my list.
Yeah. We'll have to not meet after that one. You'll probably hit me with it, but
Oh man. So is there anything you're looking forward to reading that's coming up soon?
yes, I'm going to surprise you again. So
Oh.
I'm looking forward all the way to, I think, October. What is that, like
Oh.
5 or 6 months from now?
Yeah.
But I figure, I mean, what else do we have to do but anticipate things? So um, I am really, really looking forward to Ellen Hilderbrand's upcoming book called Troubles in Paradise.
Oh.
I don't know if either of you have read her, but she's a very
I have.
popular, yeah,
Yeah.
writer of contemporary fiction, and I guess a lot of people would say women's fiction. Um, and I've read maybe a handful of her books, but I really, really, a couple of years ago, I liked a series that she did called Winter Street. It was a collection of like Christmas novels set on Nantucket and this dysfunctional family that comes together every year at Christmas. And, all the things that they go through and how they eventually come together. I really, really enjoyed those books. And so recently she launched a Paradise series, which
Hmm.
sort of opened in the new year, so it wasn't necessarily Christmassy, but it's about a woman whose businessman husband dies on the island of St. John, and she realizes that he had an entire secret life there, a secret family, and she and her two grown adult sons have to sort of come to terms with that. So it's about how they themselves go to St. John's to sort of put the puzzle together of who their husband and father was and the connections that he'd made while he was there. So the first book was Winter in Paradise. The second was What Happens in Paradise, and then this October, Troubles in Paradise comes out, and I believe that's supposed to be the final book in the series. So I'm just sort of intrigued to see how she wraps everything up because I really enjoy her characterizations.
Oh, so you just gave people plenty of time to read book 1 and 2 before
Yes,
three comes
Yes.
I,
out. There you go.
Oh.
I think
That's
they
a
may
that's
both
a
be in like paperback now, or at least the first one is. So yeah, you have 6 months to catch up, and they're light, they're quick reads. Um,
right.
but there's a lot of subtext. I think a lot of times people like that don't necessarily get the credit they deserve for the stories they're telling, and people just sort of dismiss it as pop fiction. But first of all, escapism is great, and I think we could all use it. But I think also a lot of times there's a lot of subtext and deeper themes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So that's a real departure for her, isn't it? Because all of her books have taken place on Nantucket.
Yeah, it actually, and the interesting thing is it's set a bit earlier in times before the island was sort of, devastated. But she, I guess, had done like an annual vacation there, and it was something that she really enjoyed, and she wanted to pay tribute to the island, so she was able to do that through these books. But you're right, she lives on Nantucket, so usually her books are set there. So it is a departure, definitely in setting,
Yeah.
but a
Oh,
place she's very familiar with.
okay.
Nice.
Yeah. I like her writing. I have to admit, when I first moved to this area, I was seeking love. And so I started to read books by authors that wrote a lot about love. And I read, I think, one or two of her books. And, you know, she's always, not always, the books I've read were, she's writing about love, but also, you know, the trials and tribulations around it, which is very real. So I agree with you that she digs a little deeper than she gets credit for.
Yeah, and she's such a great supporter, you know, of books and of bookstores. And, you know, we really need people like that and James Patterson because they're, especially in times like this, they're really pulling a lot of weight and they're doing a lot to, you know, save the independent bookstores and the books. So I think that she's a terrific champion of that and a very good storyteller.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's great.
Cool.
Great recommendations. And I'm with you. Escapism is where it's been for me these days. And I feel for people who are having a hard time reading because I definitely use it as a form of relaxation and just, you know, entering a different reality for a little while.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I found that the writing has been hard, but the reading has been surprisingly easy. Like I've found myself up way later than I've been in a really long time because I'm just so into it. So it's not unusual to be up at 1 or 2 in the morning these days, which I thought those days were over, but it also might be like the 3 cups of coffee. I'm not used to having coffee at like 4 in the afternoon.
That'll do it.
You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so, and John, you've also started your own YouTube channel. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And we'll definitely put the link to it below.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think you inspire me, you know. I just thought in this time of social distancing, you know, I really miss that connection. As you were saying, you're used to being out with each other, being out with authors and booksellers, and we can't really do that right now. And it's funny because, you know, life has thrown some strange twists and turns my way. So I had sort of stopped doing a lot of the moderating that I'd been doing because I just don't really have that time and flexibility. But this spring, I was actually enlisted to do several, you know, different things. So I was like, oh, this will sort of be my re-coming out party, you know? And then, you know, COVID-19 happened and everything was either canceled or postponed. And on the one hand, it was a relief because I'm like, well, that means I don't have to worry about, you know, arrangements at home and putting pressure on other people to pick up the slack. But at the same point, you know, it's disappointing to not be able to see those people. So I thought, well, why not do virtual visits? You know, with technology, it's easy enough to Skype or Zoom with people. And I'd been watching, you know, your videos and I thought, why not give it a try? So I enlisted my friend Marcia Clark for my first episode, and she's just wonderful. And, you know, she was my willing guinea pig, and we talked all about her new book. I'm going to flash it right now because, you know, if you want a mystery recommendation, Final Judgment, Marcia Clark, her first book since 2017. And it's actually the 4th and final book in her Samantha Brinkman series. So, you know, she joined me on the show, and I have a couple other interviews that I'm lining up now. I'm going to talk to Melissa Crandall, one of my friends who wrote Elephant Speak, a memoir about her friend who was the elephant zookeeper in Oregon. And I'm going to be talking to Emily Arsenault next week. And like I said, I would love to have you ladies on. So hopefully, you know, we can work that out. But yeah, it's online on YouTube. I'm hoping to post maybe a video a week. Nothing more than that, but it's just sort of a way to stay connected and to allow authors to continue to, you know, talk up their work online since they can't do it in person. And can I reveal like the secret of what I'm doing?
Sure.
Absolutely.
This video is all about big reveals, John.
Yeah, you know, I've been joking, and you can actually see behind me, my backdrop looks a little bit different on Skype than it does in Zoom. So you might be able to actually tell where I'm sitting right now, but I've been joking with people that I've been working in Studio B. There is no Studio A, but Studio B is my bathroom, and behind me is my shower curtain.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it.
I swear, though, I am not sitting on the toilet. I mean, I'm so close that I could, like, flush it. But, so, yes, this is my studio, but it's sort of like a private, bright place in the house. And on Zoom, like, focuses in so closely that you cannot tell that there's a shower behind that. So when I zoomed in with Marcia, she was like, Jesus, John, are you in a law library? Like, yeah. Not quite.
Oh, no.
But again, it's something that you can do from home, right?
It's your multi-purpose room.
Oh, my gosh.
It really is. And, you know, I have to tell you, after, like, the coffee this morning, I was a little bit worried about sitting this close to the toilet.
Oh, my gosh. Morning coffee with John on the John.
TMI, more than you ever wanted to know. Aren't you glad you invited me?
I think we better go.
Go. Oh man,
Oh,
John,
my
thanks
goodness.
so much for coming and talking with us and being up so early and getting me up
Yeah.
early. It's been great.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you for getting up early for this. It was worth it to see your faces and to talk about books, you know?
Absolutely.
Our favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks
everybody.
so much, John.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
John. Bye.
Stay well. Bye.
Bye.